Davidson at Flamingo. What is an insight?
Good question. I think I've got this one. Hello, everyone. Hello. How are we? You're not as drunk as I was told you were going to be. Extra daunting. It's great to see so many of you here. I've not been to one of these before, and I understand this is like one of the best turnouts ever, which I don't know whether that's kind of sort of exciting or depressing. There must be a lot of people in the room who aren't sure what an insight is. I could say anything. But what better person to kind of give you clarity and explain this than a sort of global insight professional like myself? I have to say, I do find this question quite daunting when it's insights in your job title, and that's what your business does. Normally at Flamingo, I get to ask my colleagues about anything. I can say, hey, we need, let's get in a room, let's talk about contemporary masculinity, throw around some thoughts, and they're all there turning up for their free sandwiches. I said, hey, what's an insight? Nothing. No one showed up. Although that's not too fair. A few people did, and they helped me put this together. So what is an insight? I must say, hang on, this one. Number 2. Pressing it. Number 1. Hey, there we go. Cool. So what is an insight? I sort of felt a bit like in answering this, I felt a bit like a builder being asked to sort of talk about the essence of bricks. You kind of work with them every day, but you're not really focused on the thing that you're working with. You're kind of busy building houses and stuff like that. But it kind of got me thinking. I think it really pays to step back and actually appreciate your raw materials that you're working with. And I probably work with insights a little bit differently to you guys. I'm at the coal face, mining away, trying to discover them. Yeah, if we actually think about what an insight is, I'll refer to my notes because I can't remember what I was going to say. That's it, where we encounter insights. I normally encounter them in a 2-day workshop with people from Unilever or Diageo. And that's really where I feel the kind of frustration and the limitations on our language and our ability and a capacity to describe what an insight is. The sort of restrictions and the insistence of the way that you have to structure that insight, like, hey, it's got to start with an I, and it's got to have a tension in there, otherwise it's not an insight. And you start thinking, hang on, this is hard enough to pack all of this stuff in here, and you're putting all these other constraints on it too. It's like, okay, let's move on. And I genuinely think that our lack of understanding of what an insight looks like and the qualities of an insight are holding us back from doing better creative work. So one thing I think is quite straightforward is I think we're all aligned on what we want an insight to do. Just a quick show of hands, who's heard Jeremy Bullimore's insight joke? Oh, I can get to tell it. Fantastic. It's the only insight joke in history, to my knowledge. So why is an insight like a refrigerator? Because as soon as you look at it, a light goes on. Brilliant. And that's what insight... Hilarious. Good, I can blame it on him. I genuinely think that we're all clear that we want insights to illuminate. We want them to kind of expand our minds, help us understand, and inspire us to do great things. It all kind of falls apart when we start to describe, well, what is an insight? What does that actually look like? And these are a few descriptions of insights that I've been working with recently. So, a penetrating understanding that provides hooks or clues for brand communication and platform building opportunities. Thought-provoking and true observation on the nature of human thought or behavior. And then you've got the stuff here, the structure stuff like it's got to start with an I, it must contain a dilemma. Isn't it ironic that these descriptions of an insight are the least insightful things you've ever seen? I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I understand what an insight is any better from reading these. So, let's actually work towards trying to find a more insightful definition of an insight. I also feel like, for me, an insight's a feeling. You kind of know it when you feel it. And it's like we're using very functional, practical language to describe this emotion. And it feels to me a little bit like this. Trying to describe laughter, and we describe it as rhythmic, vocalized, expiratory, involuntary actions. That's not what a laugh is to me, and I feel like that's the kind of language we're applying. So our definitions are lacking insight. Let's come up with a more insightful definition. The one we came up with at Flamingo is this. An insight is a disturbance in discourse. So just to explain that a bit more, the discourse being essentially the received and understood way that you can talk about a particular area. So if you're talking about laundry, for years and years there was only one way to talk about laundry. You talked about whiteness, whiter than whites, whitest whites ever, new and improved. You talked about what's the insight into a mum doing her laundry. It's about sending off her partner or child to school or to work with the whitest clothes ever, because that shows that she's a good mum. And then someone came along and said, let's disturb this, and came along with what to my mind is one of the most powerful, best insights ever, and that is dirt is good. What? Dirt's good? Whoa! And we processed that for a second. Well, if that's true, suddenly there's a whole world of opportunities, new avenues of thought, new language that opens up. And so, that's what we say. Essentially, a good insight creates a whole new way of thinking. Dove's campaign for real beauty did exactly the same thing. It allows us to express something that we felt previously was inexpressible. So disturbance in the discourse, I don't actually think necessarily we're going to get any further by just trying to define what an insight is. I think it's better to talk about the qualities of an insight. But remember a disturbance in discourse, because I think that's a useful term. Not to be confused with a disturbance in the force. Is Obi-Wan. He's obviously had a brilliant insight. Or a million screaming voices suddenly silenced. We're not sure which, but it doesn't matter right now. So what I did was, in the absence of a kind of really industry-wide standard definition of what the qualities of an insight, I kind of crowdsourced or Googled the answer. Look after the sponsors. And chucked it all into a word cloud and sort of saw which things popped out. And there's a few things I'll draw your attention to. And I'm going to pick up on these because I think these are the culprits. I think these are the things stopping us having good insights or more powerful insights. The first one is true. I'm talk about that. There's this one here, consumer. And there's this one here, deep. I'm going to move over here, get a different point of view. So let's have a look at those three. Why have we got a problem here? Are you in the pursuit for human truths, consumer truths? If that is your start point for trying to come up with a really good insight, you're going to find it really difficult. You're going to find this a real challenge. Because I've got some news for you. Truth is usually really boring. If you're talking about biscuits or an established category out there that's been around for decades and decades, trying to find truths around someone's behaviour or thoughts about this, you're going to have to work extremely hard to find something genuinely true that's interesting as well. So truth is boring. Truth is also too late. I think that's one of the issues with truth, is that if something's so well established to be understood as true, well then the chances are your competitors have already nicked that one and they're going to go and do something with it. And the other thing about truth is that I think it really does send us down the wrong path. If we look for truths, suddenly we're looking for facts, observable things, things that came out of people's mouths, and all these actually quite unhelpful things when you're actually trying to get to this kind of disrupting discourse type insight. So don't start with truth. I'm not saying for a second that your insight can be, people want to populate Mars and eat cheese. It's got to have some sort of test of validity at the end of it, but the truth bit comes at the end. And I love that Jerry Seinfeld thing. It's like, I think if you start with what would be really interesting to be true, and then you almost take that truth and then say, well, what world would we have to live in for this thing to be true? And then suddenly you find yourself occupying a really interesting space. So actually, I think stand-up comedians do this quite a lot. It's like, they lead you into thinking about the world from a certain point of view, and then suddenly all these things that are actually ridiculous become true. Like, dirt is good isn't true, but it is true if you see it from a certain angle, a certain point of view. So that's what I'd say about truth. Welcome to my world. So I get to see on a regular basis consumers. Now, it might surprise you to have a sort of qualitative researcher saying this, but I firmly believe that insights don't only come from consumers. There are loads of other sources of insight out there. Brand insights, category insights, cultural insights, packaging. There's so many other things you can interrogate and look at beyond people. And I'd say this is particularly true, again, in those kind of well-established categories. So yeah, look in other places if you want to come up with these disruptive and disturbing insights. Insights don't need to be deep. This is a particular bugbear of mine. It definitely suits my colleagues and from across other agencies, as well as planners, I think, to kind of make out that insights are so deep. We've got to dig down, got to go and like try really hard. They're so hard to get at these things. But this is only true if you believe that the answer resides in sort of a consumer's sort of deep subconscious, and you've got to plug them into electrodes and sort of neuroscience equipment to actually unlock this deep-rooted insight. I think it's actually a lot more useful to go more sideways than deep. So go broader. You know, stop talking to your target consumer, for example, and actually talk to some people who would never buy this product in a million years, or completely unrelated categories. Go across to get that other point of view, to get that other angle, because actually just going down and down and down and down, you know, you're going to go down into obscurity, and then suddenly you're going to ruin what an insight should do, which is, you know, illuminate and you know, be instantly recognizable. And then one of my final ones, this is often how we encounter insights. I'm sure it is you too. Generic brand model here. And here, consumer insight, this monolith. It's the insight. And I don't know about you, but I find that frustrating. I find it scary. You've got to pack all of your knowledge and understanding of a category brand and the opportunities it might present into that box. Now, if you're an incredibly gifted poet, writing haikus or something, or if you are, if you've got loads of years, I think that Dirt is good insight. Sort of took about 10 years to craft. Then yeah, you might be able to reduce down all of this knowledge and texture and complexity into one pithy little sentence. But I don't think we necessarily have the talents or the time to be doing this. So, you know, rather than the monolithic insight, how about I'd prefer lots, or several, almost like pretty good, inspiring ideas and thoughts than trying to craft it into kind of one rigid insight. So, beware of the monolithic insight. The more disturbance, the better. So, forget the truth. Look beyond consumers. Think breadth, not depth. And beware the monolithic insights. And your insight, when it strikes, you should know the feeling. But I've got a visual reference to capture it too. It should look a bit like this. Disturb the discourse. Thank you.